African Americans have played a huge part in the entertainment industry, haven't they? The music industry alone owes basically everything to the contribution of black artists. But a lesser one that gets talked about is the contribution that they make to film. While things have obviously never been perfect, African Americans have contributed a lot to film history, even if at the time they got little credit. So basically just like the music industry. From modern day black filmmakers like Spike Lee, Jordan Peele, and Ryan Coogler, to older examples like the blaxploitation genre. But for this episode, we're gonna go way back to one of the earliest forms of black expression in film, simply titled race films, produced from the 1910s to the 1950s, made by black filmmakers for black audiences, made as a retaliation against racism in Hollywood. One of their earliest pioneers in this genre was a man by the name of Oscar Micheaux, who had a hand in at least 41 films from 1919 to 1948, many of which, including his first film, are sadly lost to time. In fact, that fate almost befell this movie that was until the 1970s, when a Spanish version was rediscovered and translated back into English. And as a great way to remember Black History Month, let us do some analysis on this famous part of Black history. Spoilers ahead, the film is public domain, so you can watch it literally anywhere. Within Our Gates is a 1920 film that tells the story of Sylvia Landry, played by Evelyn Prier, a light-skinned African-American woman from the South who moved north to have a better life. She's engaged to a soldier named Conrad, played by James D. Ruffian, who strangles her after Sylvia's cousin, Alma, played by Floyd Clements, tries to break them up to take Conrad for herself. Sylvia heads back to the South to clear her head, where she meets Reverend Jacobs, played by S.T. Jacks, who runs a school for African Americans, which is about to be closed down due to lack of funding. Sylvia decides to try and look for benefactors to help aid the school. After suffering a car crash, the owner of the vehicle, Elena Warwick, played by Miss Evelyn, agrees to pay up, and after a racist Southern woman named Geraldine Stratton, played by Bernice Ladd, tries to get her to reconsider, Mrs. Warwick decides to increase the donation exponentially. However, a criminal named Larry, played by Jack Chenault, tries to get Sylvia to steal the money, or he threatens to expose her past to her new sweetheart, Dr. Vivian, played by Charles D. Lucas. In order to make sure that there are no secrets between Sylvia and Dr. Vivian, Alma decides to reveal the story, explaining that Sylvia was actually adopted by a poor black family in the South who used a majority of their money to pay for her education. The patriarch of the family, Jasper Landry, played by William Starks, after going to pay rent to the landlord, Philip Griddlestone, gets accused of his murder by an Uncle Tom character named Ephraim, played by E.G. Tatum, and a lynch mob chases after the Landrys, with Ephraim being rewarded nicely for his contributions. The Landry parents are lynched, and Sylvia nearly gets murdered, and possibly other things, by Philip Griddlestone's brother, played by Grant Gorman. But then right before this film becomes X-rated, it is revealed that she's actually his child, and out of guilt of what he was going to do to her, he agrees to finance the rest of her education without telling her the truth. After the story is revealed, Dr. Vivian meets with Sylvia, where he begins to give her an impassioned speech, talking about how don't let this deter her love for her country, and remember that this country would not exist without the contribution of black Americans, after which the two would wed. Due to the time period and the release date of this film, it's kind of seen as a response to a more infamous film regarding race, but Oscar himself stated that it was made more as a response to widespread racial violence in post-war America, such as the Chicago Race Riot of 1919, Sylvia literally serving as a representation of the Great Migration, where African Americans left the South in droves in hopes of better lives in the North. The first thing I should say is this: if you're not into silent films, you'll have to skip this. And I will admit that I initially had some issues watching the film, just because it's just not really my thing watching a silent movie for an hour. If you understand that this will be an issue, but still want to check out this movie, just put on some classical music in the background, and maybe increase the speed if you're in a video player that allows you to do that. But that does not detract from the film at all, and neither does the other interesting fact about this film. You see, surprisingly, very few prominent people in the film industry wanted to work with Oscar for this project, so he had to rely on his own limited budget to make the film. Most of the costumes were secondhand, and they had to be filmed in one take due to time limits, which is why the film looks really low bar, even compared to other films made at the time. And as stated previously, another reason to check this movie out is simply due to the fact that it was for a long period of time lost media, much like a lot of other films in its catalog. Now there is one more thing about the film that I could say that is a little bit confusing and complex. The ending message. The ending message, I can see both angles of this, because on one end, it seems really weird that after this long-standing film about racism, this country is really, really racist, and it's built on a lot of racist attitudes, all of a sudden at the end it's just oh yeah, by the way, you should still love America. But on the other end, he's explicitly trying to tie in the message of the contributions of Black Americans, and is saying that we shouldn't throw all of those away just because of bad things in America's history, which is a thing that we all need to grapple with. Just because America has a bad past doesn't mean it can be bad for the future. Yes, we've done a lot of good things, but we've also done a lot of bad things. And we need to truly have a conversation about both things, not just, oh, America's great, wonderful, the end, or America is evil, gross, disgusting. Like every nation in the world, it has its shining moments and it has its dark past. So yeah, if you're interested in checking out a little bit of Black history, but something a bit more different, then I recommend checking out Within Our Gates. Thanks for watching this video. Be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and click the bell to be notified when a future video of mine comes out. And if you're interested in more content from me, you can go to our website, follow me on Twitter, join my Discord, or consider supporting me on Patreon.